latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com. Now, from the Signature Bank Studios. Only the biggest stories, only the biggest guests, and only the biggest opinions. This is AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here. The deployment of the National Guard is not the only fight that is brewing between the Trump administration and the new Marxists in charge of the state of Illinois. The Illinois State Board of Elections is on a September 1st deadline to turn over the state's full voter registration list, including birth dates, driver's license numbers, signatures, to the Civil Rights Division of Trump's Justice Department. This is a fight that's brewing. The same demand was made in Trump's first term, and it was dutifully ignored. Made by an election integrity commission that Trump had established. Well, they're back at it, and of course, the whole tenor of the pushback is the information is very sensitive. We need to know what the Trump administration is going to do with it, how it will protect the data, right? Because it's otherwise so protected. Not to mention, the voter file is a public record. I can get, as somebody who's run a PAC, I can get a copy of the voter file. I do have a copy of the voter file. So, but the Justice Department can't have it without the making representations to the state of Illinois as to the safeguarding that will take place. No, I mean, this is just a cover, in my estimation. The state is using so as to avoid any scrutiny as to the quality of the data in the voter file. In other words, have these voter rolls been cleaned up at all to remove people who have passed away, to remove people who have moved away, to remove people who may be in this country illegally? Right. This is part of the election integrity fight that rolls on past 2024 and will continue. For more on the topic, we're pleased to be joined by Ken Cuccinelli, National Chairman of the Election Transparency Initiative, former Virginia Attorney General and former Deputy Secretary of Homeland Security as well. Ken, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Good to be with you, Dan, as always.
So, this is the latest front, and we need an update from you since you're sort of monitoring this in all 50 states, because it's not just Illinois, it's Wisconsin and several other states that have received similar data requests from the Department of Justice. And am I right to say it's so that the federal government can see if the state government is living up to its responsibilities to ensure free and fair elections by maintaining proper voter rolls?
Yes, and this is the first time I can remember Republican or Democrat administrations actually enforcing the federal requirements for voter roll cleanups. They were part of Motor Voter 30 plus years ago, and I don't think any administration has ever enforced these requirements. And to give you an idea of just how dirty some of these voter rolls can be, Judicial Watch engaged in a multi-year fight in Los Angeles County, which has a population of about 10 million, same a little more than Virginia. And after several years, they won and had 1.2 million ineligible or dead people removed from the rolls in a county of 10 million people. So 10% of the entire population of the, or at least the equivalent. Of course, they had more people on the rolls, but this is long overdue, and it's interesting. Everything you said in the intro is absolutely accurate, and including, I think, your supposition of the motives of Illinois to stall here when anybody doing anything political in the state of Illinois can sign one of those contracts that I'm sure you've signed running a PAC. to get the voter list. So suddenly the Justice Department is the enemy, of course, and we understand why that is if you're Illinois. But all they're doing is enforcing the law.
Yeah, well,
that's
the key point too. Because you'll just get their standard stock response of tyranny. This is I thought Republicans were for states' rights, and this is these elections are state and local matters. Well, yeah, but there's also federal law that governs them. And you were just outlining, and Harmeet Dillon in the Office of Civil Rights said basically, to your response about there are state laws that protect the privacy interests of voters with respect to their voting information. She's like, well, that's
clause.
Yeah, that's preempted. So, you're out of luck.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And they know that. To your point, it's like the hit the orange man bad button.
Yeah.
And,
right.
Commence the screaming, et cetera. But there's no basis for Illinois, no legal basis for them to object to this. And just as there was no basis for Newsom to object to Trump federalizing the National Guard. I mean, that's an automatic power. And yet he sued knowing full well he was going to lose because it was a news opportunity. And that's really what's going on here is Illinois is generating a news opportunity just to attack Trump. And that's it. But the end game here is that they'll be able to access the voter files. And I have no doubt, unfortunately, because this is one of the weaknesses of election systems all over the country, voter files are very dirty. And by dirty, I don't mean evil dirty. I mean out of date, unkept up, sloppy, mistake-ridden dirty. And the more junk you have in the pile, the easier it is to hide fraud, which is one of the reasons it's so important to clean them up. And with 2% of Americans roughly moving every month, that's 48% in one congressional 2-year cycle. Now, of course, a lot of those are repeats, but you get the idea. America is a very mobile society. Keeping up voter rolls is way, way, way behind the society itself. And this is one of those things I've tried to encourage our allies in state legislatures, start using private databases. Don't just rely on, the post office national change of address database. Mm-hmm. And in the next breath, criticize the post office for how bad it is, and it is. And now we're going to rely on their data to clean up the voter rolls. If you want to sell something on Amazon, they're going to run you through 100 private databases and make sure you are who you say you are where you say you are, because they want accountability within their own system. And they do that very cost effectively, and they do it very fast. All our governments, including the reddest of red states, do it slowly and badly. And I'm sorry to say that about our friends, but they're unwilling to use the tools that would make this cheap and fast.
Well, it seems to me this is the sort of the parallel fear with redistricting. Like Republicans lethargic in essentially gerrymandering, like what's going on in Texas. Because they don't want to be called racist. It's sort of the same thing. I mean, you just mentioned, and I don't want to gloss over this. I mean, L.A. County, 1.3 million in a 10 million universe of bad voter files. Yeah. I mean, that's incredible. And spread that over the nation. That's incredible. And so it's the same thing. I mean, obviously Texas is moving forward on the remapping. Under the law, this is what they can do. And if you want to have hypocrites like J.B. Pritzker level criticisms, then go ahead. I mean, so we're either going to do the system one way, and you're going to have both sides engaged in that, or you're going to do it another way. But the idea, like it's for me but not for thee, which they do in all of these matters, is silliness. But they've gotten away with it for so long in certain locales because they just play the you're a racist card, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. And enough of our squishes cower from it. It's still sort of this Bush mentality of trying to get everyone to love you, and that is just not going to happen.
Right.
And in fact, in this world we're in now, we're farther and farther from it, not closer and closer to it. So, that doesn't mean you do irrational things. You just take your position, and if you believe something's right, you fight all the way through the tape for it. And J.B. Pritzker is the poster child for sure for partisan gerrymandering. And it is hilarious that was the first state the Texas Democrats went running to, of all, where you're 14-3 in a 55-45 state. So we'll see. And one thing to know, up in Chicago, you wouldn't necessarily pay attention to this. It's Texas redistricting, yes, but how did it start? It started with a Fifth Circuit ruling last year that said combining Hispanics and black voters in what are called coalition districts to meet the majority-minority requirements of the Voting Rights Act isn't legitimate. And that was overturning a 1988 case in the Fifth Circuit. And so once that case last year happened, during the Biden administration, of course, then a number of the districts in Texas were illegal. And the Justice Department sent Texas a letter and said, under this ruling last year by the Fifth Circuit, these districts are not legal and you need to redraw these districts. And so that's how it began. And people can say, yeah, well, it was the Trump Justice Department sent him a letter. Yeah, well, it was a court that made the ruling. Mm-hmm. And everybody knows that the districts were exactly what the court said they were. So, I've heard very little discussion that this all started with bringing Texas into compliance with the Voting Rights Act. Governor Newsom doesn't mention that in his many rants. Governor Pritzker doesn't mention that, right?
No, they just use this is highly unusual. Well, yeah, it's unique circumstances. So what? Okay, so what?
Well, the most common mid-decennial redistricting is because of court ruling.
Yeah.
And that's been going on for a long time, particularly in years in my lifetime. That has accelerated. Really, it hardly existed before that because of one person, one vote in the early 60s and the Voting Rights Act in the mid-60s. And that has brought, election litigation that didn't exist for the first 3/4 of the United States history.
And by the way, Pritzker, not only the national poster boy for gerrymandering, but also for Lipitor. But I digress. I wanted
Must be a long-term plan.
Yeah, yeah, right. Yes, it's trying to scare people straight. The possible deployment of the National Guard to Chicago or Baltimore, as distinguished from D.C. or the case of California. Is it your view that Trump has the emergency power to federalize the National Guard to Chicago in the case that he wants to?
Well, he does, but realize that the federal power over the District of Columbia is unique in the country. It's in the Constitution, and there are laws in place that give him levers of authority, like the 30-day takeover of the police, that don't exist in Chicago. He can't take over the Chicago police because of the 10th Amendment. And the 10th Amendment doesn't apply. This sounds funny. It doesn't apply. I shouldn't say it doesn't apply. It isn't relevant to D.C. because D.C. isn't a state. Mm-hmm. And but states are sovereign. They created the federal government. They were here first. And so the president can't take over state elements and manpower like he can in the District of Columbia. Can he bring the Guard? Can he federalize the Guard? Yes, he can. Does posse comitatus stop them from making arrests? No, it doesn't. You all are going to hear about that. The Insurrection Act doesn't stop it. The Insurrection Act is a very unfortunately named piece of legislation. There are 3 other reasons that aren't insurrections. The powers of that statute, which dates back to the very beginning of our country and has been used repeatedly, can be employed. And it's anywhere the president thinks that he has inadequate manpower or resources to perform federal duties, and that can be law enforcement as well. The president who signed the Posse Comitatus Act after the Civil War, Hayes, promptly deployed the Army to Arizona as a police force for a year and a half. So, and nobody in Congress complained, by the way, because they all understood that was well within the president's power.
And so this is a deputization of the National Guard if he were to federalize them and deploy them to Chicago. What in your view are the limitations on their police power?
So they can back up federal resources. But mugging isn't a federal offense,
right?
Drug dealing is. So but there are those. It's those kinds of limits. Your limits become the legal jurisdictional limits of enforcing criminal laws, but they're going to be federal criminal laws that the National Guard can enforce without state cooperation, not state laws.
Well, I just want you to know that noted constitutional scholar Brandon Johnson disagrees with you. So I don't know if that informs your opinion at all. Ken Cuccinelli, National Chairman of the Election Transparency Initiative, former Virginia Attorney General, and former Deputy Secretary of Homeland Security. Ken, thanks as always. Appreciate it.
Hey, it's good to be with you, Dan. Have a great day.
You too. And Ken joined us on the Turnkey.pro answer line.
This is the morning show more Chicago radio listeners are choosing. This is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
This is an urgent announcement for anyone that's $10,000 or more in debt. Before